We're talking with Colin Flaherty. Colin, how you doing?
Oh, happy to be on, Ken.
Yeah, good to have you. So you got kicked off YouTube. What's
I was,
news,
you
right?
know what? I was going for your record. I was going for your record. So I think we're tied now, both at five. You're a little more patient than I am because I thought five was enough for me.
Yeah,
So
I've been
I
kicked off five
switched.
times. The last time they kicked me off YouTube, this was it's been about 2 years ago. I contacted, I got a hold of somebody at YouTube, and I contacted him, and I said, "Look, I am not a racist. I have black heritage. You can't call me a white supremacist." They put me back on. I mean, it took a couple months to get it done, but they finally put me back on. So I was a little bit surprised. But so far, I have managed to stay on YouTube. But we'll see what happens.
The article that got it's funny. It's funny the one. It's funny to look at the straw that finally breaks the camel's back, right? The one that broke the camel's back for me that got me kicked off was Atlantic Magazine, the venerable Atlantic Magazine. They wrote big article saying white people moving into black neighborhoods forces black people to commit crime. I
Well,
said,
that's
okay.
that's perfectly logical, right?
Yeah, I said, so I suggested, you know what, that doesn't make a damn bit of sense. And I kind of blasted Atlantic for a while. And because it reminded people that that's their thing now. They publish Ta-Nehisi Coates. They're always down with the cause. And, and I do the same as you can. No racism, no rancor, no apologies. I got kicked off of YouTube for calling BS on an article full of BS. And so after that, I said, I'm just going to go over to minds.com/Colin Flaherty because I don't feel like walking on eggshells around these people anymore.
Yeah, it gets frustrating. Okay, if they want to find you on Minds.com, they just go to Minds.com, Colin Flaherty.
Yeah, easy to find.
The
Plus, I'm on Twitter all the time, on Facebook. I'm always posting my mind stuff over there. I mean, Ken, it's not, we're easy to find. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, you can't see it, but folks at home can see your Minds.com website. So the first article is something about St. Louis. What's that all about?
Oh, man. So St. Louis, I just posted that a few hours ago. So St. Louis, that is a town where every reporter in town knows they have a nasty crime problem, and they know that crime in St. Louis is a black thing. Okay. Everybody in St. Louis knows that. And so I did a story where somebody sent me a story and they said, Colin, you got to see this. You won't believe it. And so when I started looking at the story, I said, well, I must have the wrong story here because this is a story of a bunch of black people beating up people at a school. But this is an example of white racism. I said, I had the wrong story. Halfway through the story, they pivot and they go, yeah, the reason this is happening is because black students are suspended more than white students in schools in St. Louis, and it's all because of white racism. That's why black people are so violent in the schools. Teachers are picking on black people, and white people do it too. The teachers ignore it. I thought that was weird. That's, I mean, how many? These they can't. Reporters just cannot get it right when you talk about race and racial violence, which is what I do all the time.
Well, the question is, Colin, do these reporters know better? They're just flat out lying? I mean, they got to know better. They've got to.
It's kind of a combination of both, right? But you look at the story and you see this person. One thing I liked about that story, they have all these experts, and this reporter, if she watches her own channel, she knows like what there's a black crime is a problem in St. Louis. That's like saying it's cold at the North Pole. But they don't talk about it, but they will show the pictures. And as you follow up and you see the mug shots and you see the victims' videos, all that stuff, it's there. And so the only way you can look into a camera and pretend that black people are that white people are picking on St. Louis, black people in St. Louis. I mean, you're living in some kind of fairy tale in fairyland.
They live in a fantasy world. Yeah, I've got your video playing now, but there's a scene here where there's like a fight in a cafeteria.
Yeah,
That
and so the mom starts off. The reporter starts off by saying, "Well, we've seen these fight videos all the time. When you see them, the fight videos are a black thing. That means they're black 99.99% of the time, especially in St. Louis. The
that
videos from
doesn't
schools."
that doesn't count the ones they don't upload to the internet.
Oh,
Now,
good
when
lord!
I look at
And
these videos, Well, it reminds me of my days in high school. As you know, I went to a majority black high school. This happened all the time. 50 years ago, Colin, I was in school. This is 2018, right? So I started school in 1968, 69, 70.
Was this Indianapolis?
Tech High School, Indianapolis. And, these things that are on your video is just reminiscent of what I experienced 50 years ago. Nothing has changed except the proliferation of video devices and the internet. That didn't exist, obviously, 50
Ken,
years
let me
ago.
ask you a question. So you went to a black, how many, like, what was it? How many white people were in that school? What percent? 5, 10, 15, 20?
Oh, it was more than that. The school was, at the time, the largest high school in Indiana. 5,000 students, and it was like 51% black, so it was a majority black high school, but just barely.
And was there so was black on white crime and violence a thing?
It was, it was persistent, constant, all the time. When you walked on campus, you had to be careful. First day I walked on campus, 14 years old, some black kid came up, punched me in the head. Seriously, white guy walks on campus, kid, obviously it's kind of news. He walked up and punched me in the head. Fortunately for me, I had a good friend who went to school, was like a year ahead of me, and he was used to this. And, he started screaming, and next thing you know, a teacher came out and ran this kid off. But there's a bunch of black kids standing around watching it, and they were amused, but it never stopped. The whole 4 years I was there, Colin.
Let me ask you a question, and this might be a touch sensitive, but what did your parents know about your experience in this school?
Not much. It's something you just didn't talk about. I should have, but I just didn't talk about it.
And so I think a lot of parents did that. And so today, when I see a white kid going to a black school, and the parent, the white kid gets beat up, and the parent looks into the camera and says, "I didn't know nothing. I didn't know. Nobody told me about this." No, it's like, you should have known. That's child abuse now. That's child abuse to send a white kid to a black school, because you will be the victim of black hostility and violence, period.
Constantly. It's just a given. It's just a matter of fact. I can't tell you, Colin, how many times I was attacked physically by black kids. Usually, always black males. But, I remember one time I walked into a building. By the way, our campus was set up like a college. It wasn't like one building like a typical high school, but we had a lot of different buildings. So when the bell rang, you passed classes, you went outside and you went to a different building. So I walked into one building and there was, 4 or 5 black kids standing there. And some guy said, they always ask you for money, give me $1 or whatever. I just walked past him, and when I did, behind, they hit me in the head. And that happened all the time. That was just the way that it was. And nobody cared. Nobody did anything about it. Nobody tried to stop it. Everybody knew it would happen. But when you went to class, they would tell you how evil white people were.
And the video you just watched, that's what the subject of that is that white people are picking on black people in these schools, and that's why they're suspended more often. Every time I've talked about this topic about black violence in schools, black on white violence, black on Asian, a lot. I get a lot of comments. When my YouTube channel was at full throttle, I was getting 3,000 comments a day. And never once have I gotten a comment, that doesn't count the emails or the tweets or the Facebook. Never once have I gotten an email from a teacher going, "Colin, you got that wrong. I was a teacher in a black school. The white kids were respected. They helped everybody learn. It was all one big, we all sat around, held hands, and sang Kumbaya." Not once, but I've gotten hundreds of letters from teachers and students saying, "Good Lord, Colin, I thought I was the only one that happened to. I was the only one like Ken. Ken went to school. I had the same experience with black kids. It was horrific. It was violence. It was had a permanent mark on me." And the women tell the same story.
For me, it was a red pilling experience. Now, I recall after I was at high school and I was in college, and I was invited to some event, can't remember what it was, like some kind of a lodge, whatever, but one of my former teachers was there, history teacher, and then he came clean, so to speak. He said, you guys couldn't even go in the restroom, which is true.
Now, the
because
restroom and the stairways are the most dangerous places in a black school.
yeah, hallways, well, basically any place, but the restrooms in particular. When I was in high school, Colin, you did not, if you were white, you didn't use the restroom. You just didn't. Ever. Because if you go in the restroom, that's where these black guys hang out, and they just attack you the moment you walk in.
It's
Every
amazing
single
how,
restroom is like they patrol the bathrooms, and
I mean, it's
look.
amazing how often I've seen that on video, but yet that doesn't deter the people. I mean, this is a thing now. It's a thing over the last 3 months. It's a thing for schools, dozens and dozens of school districts around the country now. They're doing their reports that talk about disparity, black and white disparity in discipline and performance. And there's only one reason only for it. It's the same reason Barack Obama gave in his executive order on excellence in African American education. It's white racism that's causing this disparity. White teachers are picking on black kids, and they're letting white kids get away with the same stuff that black kids get suspended for. That's the fairy tale we're living in, Ken. That's why, you know what? I hear so much stuff from so many victims of this. And I'm just telling you, I'm just going to keep speaking the truth, just like you, as plainly as possible. I don't care how long it takes.
What's interesting, and a lot of people need to know this, and I'm sure that those who know you already do, is you are supported by a lot of black people.
There's a lot of black people out there that feel imprisoned by this violent stereotype that is imposed upon them, not by Big Bad Ken and Big Bad Colin, but by something called black culture. And they
yeah,
feel like they just want to be regular people. They want to have jobs and families and white picket fences and nice houses and nice cars. And they want to go out without having to borrow their neighbor's pit bull to walk around the corner. So yeah, I get a lot of people like that. They appreciate when we talk about it. We're not doing the explaining thing. We're not doing the apologizing thing. We're just saying, man, there's something really screwed up going on in this country right now.
well, what we're saying is this is reality. This is what's real. This is what's happening. Put you on the spot. Name some black notables that are supporting you.
Well, I tell you who changed my life, of course, was Thomas Sowell.
Thomas Sowell, yeah.
So I started writing this book, and I didn't know who was going to read it. I didn't know how it was going to get published. I started writing this book, White Girl Bleed a Lot. I just started, doing this and that. Finally, somebody got a copy of the book and they gave it to Sowell. I've never met Sowell to this day. Within 2 months, Sowell wrote 3 columns about White Girl Bleed a Lot, saying, hey, this guy Colin Flaherty, he knows more about this stuff than I do. He's documented the violence and the denial all over the country, which is basically like, writing an article for Golf Magazine where Tiger Woods says, yeah, Colin's the greatest golf teacher in the world. I mean, that's what the level of. So Thomas Sowell, Alan West. And so I don't really play the game of, I've got the black friends and the black support, but there are a lot of people out there that are just like saying, hey, I'm tired of this fairy tale that all these black people and these white liberals have concocted that's restricting me and holding me down. And I'm just, I'm kind of down with those people.
Yeah, well, if I were black living in a black neighborhood, I would want to get out. But where do you go?
It's funny. Every once in a while, maybe you'll know about this guy. In Indianapolis, there was a columnist. He went to church one day and his minister challenged them to do something besides just talk about racial inequality. So he moved his family down to, I want to say, what I'm talking about?
Nope.
I forget his name. I've written about him a bunch of times. I read him about like once a year. I kind of check in with him, right? And every column. And so I think he moved his family, I want to say, to Southwest Indianapolis. He still writes a column, but he only talks about his new situation. And it's in a black neighborhood. It's kind of black neighborhood, but he's kind of cocooned in with some other white hipsters. They have chickens in their yard.
Yeah,
so when he went down there,
you can't say cocoon because that's racist.
well, he went down there all fired up about spreading the word of racial equality. A year later, he goes, yeah, well, we have a really nice neighborhood, except for that burglary that keeps happening. We consider him our neighborhood burglar. A year later, yeah, it's a really nice neighborhood, except for the burglaries and the murders that keep happening. Other than that, it's a great neighborhood, and he sends his kids to a black school and they don't have any problem at all. Okay. You know what? I actually
this is
don't
a
believe
white
him.
guy?
Yeah. He's a columnist for the Indianapolis Star Tribune.
Yeah, Indianapolis Star. I would guess the guy's just flat out lying. I mean, there's no way you're going to send your kid to a black school in
I think
Indianapolis or any major school. They're not going to have a problem.
I think he does. He might do the homeschooling thing. To tell you the truth, he just, that was like, I thought he was going to write a lot more about it, but he didn't.
Yeah,
But
this is exactly what I think, Colin, is the best way to red pill people is to experience it. I tell people, hey, if you want to know what's going on, volunteer to work in a black high school. If you're concerned about this, go volunteer to work in a black high school. It's my opinion that to receive a teacher certificate, every teacher should be required to spend, I don't know, 1 or 2, 3 years teaching in a black majority school, because that will red pill them. That will dismiss all that cultural Marxist crap they get in college.
Ken, the teaching black students is something that teachers learn in college. That's a major preoccupation with they have textbooks on it, courageous conversations. How does a white teacher teach a black student? Lots and lots of theory, lots and lots of fairy tales. But when they get into the classroom and they become victims of abuse, hostility, violence, nobody wants to learn. In Baltimore, there are 16 high schools, black high schools, where nobody can read or write above a 3rd grade level. St. Louis, 40% of the new teachers in St. Louis quit within a couple of days. They have no idea what they're getting into. So, it's the level of people, when they give that to me, it's like, hey, Colin, you don't know what's going on. And we're all, it's the color crime. There's no color, Colin. It's like, why are you telling me this? Go into the neighborhood, go into the hood, find one of the fellas, tell them you're down with the cause, maybe take a nice expensive camera with you, take your car and tell me what happens.
Your iPad.
Take your iPad.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you know this or not, but all these white liberals who are advocating integration, and by the way, I oppose government-forced anything. Integration, segregation, governments need to stay out of it. But I don't know if you know this or not, but the whitest city in California is Malibu. It's where all the white liberals live. So these people are preaching to us about the importance of segregation and the evils of segregation. But they themselves are segregated.
Yeah, the next place up, of course, is Marin County. That's high up on the segregation list. And there was a big story about Marin County. That's right on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge. Big story about there. And the way you segregate a town is you build Section 8 housing. And so that's a law in California. If you have a town, you have to let people build Section 8 housing. That's called your housing element. But in Marin County, nobody, they've kind of like been able to hold that dog off for a long time. Now it's kind of like getting to the time when they can't hold it off any much longer. So we shall see what happens to our buddies, the liberals.
By the way, trivia question: do you happen to know what the whitest state in the United States is?
I don't know what.
I'll give you a hint. Bernie Sanders is the
Yeah, I was going to say Vermont. It's funny, like even Vermont. So Vermont, 6 months ago, they had a big meeting because they have disproportionate number of black people in the prisons. That's another video that YouTube took down. I just put 10 minutes of the state meeting up there. All these people are going, oh, this is terrible. Why are all these black people in our prisons? Why, Colin, why? And I was saying, well, they're committing crimes out of proportion. That's why YouTube came in. Boom, you're out of here, Colin.
Yeah, that's racism. By the way, another trivia question you may not know, or trivia fact, I think the number is like 94% of prison inmates are males. Yeah. Is that sexism? Yeah. Nobody talks about that. Why is
Vermont, the biggest high school in Vermont, they are flying this month. Oh, happy Black History Month, by the way. They're flying this month on the biggest high school in Vermont, a Black Lives Matter flag.
Why don't they fly a Confederate flag?
Why do they?
I wonder why would happen.
Oh man,
Like, say what?
I sometimes we're just sitting here going, we're speechless.
Yeah, I mean, just a denial of reality. I think what's going on, Colin, this is again my opinion, but I think the cultural Marxists, the leftists, want to divide us into two groups. There's the oppressors and there's the oppressed. There's the bourgeois and there's the proletariat. White people in the American paradigm, Western paradigm, are the bourgeoisie. We are the oppressors, and the so-called people of color is a placement term for proletariat. Now we know during the Cultural Revolution in China, the bourgeoisie there was the intellectual class. But what they do is they take that cultural Marxist ideology and they superimpose it upon a society to get us to fight each other. But necessarily, white people must always be the oppressors and everybody else the oppressed, particularly black people. And they do what I call lying by omission. They just don't tell the truth. It's not that they're lying sometimes, they just don't tell what's happening. But that seems to be the direction that they're taking our country, our culture, and they're very successful at it. Okay. Last time you were on, I asked you this question. I'm going to ask you again. What are your thoughts on the Islamic invasion of Western culture, particularly the United States, Michigan, Minnesota, Minneapolis? What do you think of these Muslims coming into the country?
You know, people ask me if those two things are similar. I document black crime and denial wildly out of proportion. People say, Colin, is that similar, that thing Ken just mentioned? And no, they're not similar. Not at all. They are identical.
They're the same.
You know, and it's the same thing. I mean, it's funny. You see a guy just walk. He's got a bomb or a knife or a sword, and he's always a Muslim. And he looks and you go, no, I mean, what? I didn't do nothing. I didn't do a thing. So, when I was in England a few months ago, I had a chance to meet and do a video with Tommy Robinson. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
And
he's with the Rebel Media, by the way.
Yeah, he's the real thing over there. I mean, he's the real thing, and he's confronting them right in their houses when they do the child raping, the grooming, the criminality. He's going right up there and confronting them with cameras. And the British establishment, the legal establishment, the police establishment, they're all over him.
Yeah, he goes in front of the mosque. I saw a couple of videos he did, and he will go right out front of the mosque, and he'll confront these people, and they call him a racist. They don't deny it. They call him a racist because apparently that's what works. By the way, you know who Katie Hopkins is?
Only because I've seen her stuff over the last couple of days.
Yeah, she was arrested in South Africa. She was doing, I don't know if you heard that or not, she was doing a series of videos on farm murders. And I always encourage people to go to Google, type in the term South Africa farm murders, and click on images. If you and I, Colin, were to put those images on our YouTube channel, they'd kick us off immediately. Of course, they already kicked you off. But for some reason, Google, who owns YouTube, goes ahead and post them. I don't understand that. But it's very enlightening. Just go to YouTube, type in South Africa farm murders, click on images, and look at what they're doing. And then lecture us about white privilege.
I think, Ilana Mercer and Ken Brakey, a novelist, they're really good on reminding us what the lesson of South Africa is to us in America. The lesson of South Africa is the world has turned its back on the white genocide happening in South Africa now. The world has turned its back.
Why did they do that?
Well, because you know why? Here's the lesson. Because they think white people deserve it. The world thinks white people in South Africa deserve whatever they get for their bad behavior for the last 100 years. Okay, you know what? That is what it is. That's transparently true. But the reason why you and I should pay attention to it is because that's what we see happening here now. When we see black on white, black on Asian crime wildly out of proportion. And first people say it's not happening. Then they say white people do it too. And when you knock those two down, there's only one thing left. And that's when they kind of look at you and go, well, white people deserve it.
Based upon
4 million, 4 billion years of white oppression directed at black people for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, I saw somebody address that, and the way they explained it is that slavery is embedded in the white DNA. Therefore, it's okay to hate all white people, even though, I think they were talking about France or England. But even though
Ken, let me ask you this. Ken, let me ask you a question. Do your listeners, and Jesse Lee Peterson's good. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I really want to ask you this. Jesse Lee Peterson's good on this. Do you get the sense that your listeners or people and your viewers or people that are just your friends, do you get the sense they have any idea how massive and out of proportion this black on white hostility is every day that white people experience?
Yeah, if they don't see it, they don't listen to me. They'll go somewhere else. They'll call me a racist and then they disappear.
I mean, turn on MSNBC, CNN, Newsweek, New York Daily News. I mean, this whole story that we started off with, or we were talking about off the air, about during the Super Bowl night, a couple 100,000 people were on the streets of Philly. Today, in the last couple of days, there's been 10 to 20 stories in major media outlets saying that was a white riot and white people do it too. And why are cops always picking on black people and letting white people go? Every single one of those stories is an example of, first of all, it's a lie. Second of all, it's an example of black on white hostility. And they're all dripping with venom. And I mean, it's there. I mean, when white people you and I might see at the grocery store, when they see a little flicker of racism inside of themselves, what do? What do? We get a fire hose out, we dial 911, and we squirt that little flicker so it dies. Black people are not having that discussion. They're not looking over their shoulder when they talk about how much they're not really into white people. They're not, on TV, they're not measuring their words. They're not walking on eggshells. They're saying it. White people suck all the time.
Yeah,
I don't know why that's hard to figure out.
There's a show on TV. I've never seen it, Colin, but it's called something like Blackish or something like that. You know what I'm talking about. People tell me that that's what the show is about, is demonizing white people.
I mean, it's white people suck. That's funny. White people suck. Ha, ha. Okay, whatever. You can watch it or not, but please don't miss the larger message there. That's the larger message of Ilana Mercer, Ken Breaky in South Africa, is that black hostility is now mainstream.
Yeah, I don't know about
white
you,
people
but
deserve it. You deserved it at your high school in Indianapolis.
Sorry, because I'm white. Crazy. What was I thinking here? Okay, this story in Philadelphia, it says, I've got the article from New York Daily News on the screen, but only 4 people have been arrested. I'm reading the article so far, which has created a new controversy in the blogosphere about America's oldest dilemma, race, whereas black people were roundly condemned for rioting after police shootings in Ferguson and Baltimore. Critics said white people rioting after a football victory in Philadelphia got a free pass. So what do you say about that?
Well, let's break it down.
Okay.
Anybody get shot? Anybody go to the hospital? Anybody get knifed? Any cars set on fire? No, a couple of white kids and a couple of black kids turned over a car, and there was a video of a bunch of people looting a grocery store. That was a black thing. And so it's weird. They're saying that somehow when black people do that, the cops break their heads, and white people do it and they look the other way. Well, I've documented dozens and dozens of examples of large-scale black mob violence in Philadelphia. I mean, I'm thinking of 1,000 people marching down the street in South Philly, stopping cars, pulling people out, setting them on fire, going into restaurants, stealing their purses, taking their iPhone, fighting police, punching horses in the face. And, it got so bad.
I missed the one about punching the horse in the face.
Yeah, that's a thing. That's a black thing, punching horses. Anyway, so it got so bad, the New York Times came down and talked to former Mayor Nutter, and they said, hey, what's up with all this black violence in Philly? Mayor Nutter said, even though it's all on video, right? He goes, oh, no, don't worry about that. That's just the press blowing it out of proportion. And then we have Temple University Medical School. They went out and hired 3 of the fellas because they had street cred. And this isn't a journal. This isn't a medical journal, public health. They said, well, what do you think about all this, violence among teenagers? He goes, well, we're not worried about that. That's just kids blowing off some steam. So the level of just a few months ago, Temple University, 200 black people rampaged on and off the campus, put 6 white kids in the hospital. This is a long list. I could keep going on the black mob violence in Philly thing and how it's a thing, not just in Philly, in Baltimore, Washington, Milwaukee, Seattle, all kinds of places. And to say that somehow we had one white riot, it's not even a riot, compared that with thousands of examples of large-scale black mob violence, and now it's all equal. That's ridiculous. And by the way, Ken, all those examples he was giving, like Ferguson and Baltimore, and when black people do this, they're condemned. I've done a couple of videos where I cover, I half of my stuff is the media. I mean, violence. The other half's media. Every single example he mentioned, the dominant media narrative of those riots, of those large scale episodes of black mob violence, is that these events were largely peaceful. I mean, it's weird. You see these reporters on TV, national reporters, going, "Yes, Colin, no, those that event is large. The rioters are largely peaceful." They're in the background. You see people like looting a 7-Eleven inside of Ferguson, or you see somebody throwing a Molotov cocktail. Largely, that's New York. This isn't, this is largely peaceful. So the level of denial and deceit and delusion when it comes to race is just enormous. And now we know that they were just kind of practicing up for other levels of denial, deceit, and delusion.
Why? I mean, it's obviously to me by design. Why are they doing this? Why don't they just tell the truth? Now, if you go back, Colin, 100 years ago, and you pick up those old newspapers, I mean, they were very blunt about it. I mean, if there was a black riot, they called it a black riot.
Yeah, they call it Negro riot. It's funny how often that happened. Yeah. I don't do the why thing. I find that I do the violence, and I document the violence and the denial. But as soon as first of all, I'm not smart enough to explain it. Second of all, I find when people start doing the explaining it, that's a deflection. So one minute we're talking about 1,000 black people rampaging through the streets of Philadelphia, committing ridiculous levels of violence. The next minute we're talking about 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. That's what they want to talk about. They don't want to talk about what I want to talk about. Causes and solutions are deflections.
Yeah, I got you. I remember when I was back in my high school days, I would raise that question, and the answer I got was the Jews did it. What? We don't have any Jews in our high school. What? But they could draw the connection, so whatever.
I did a story. Speaking of Philly, I did a story, and this is going to be the title of my next book. I did a story about a large group of black people that found a white business guy all by himself during these episodes that Mayor Nutter said was not happening. And they were beating the hell out of him. They knocked him down, kicking him, punching him, laughing. He was always laughing. You probably remember the laughing when you were in high school. And he looks up from behind his fists. He looks up and he goes, "Why are you doing this? Why?" And everybody's laughing. And one kid says, "It's not our fault. You can't fight." And so, there's a lot of reasons, aren't there?
Yeah, but I recall in high school, they would attack each other. It wasn't just white kids. They would attack and beat on each other. I recall one experience. There was some black kids fighting in the cafeteria. It reminds me of that video that's on your mind.com/Colin Flaherty website. But they were fighting each other, and a white cop waded into the melee and tried to settle things down. And one of the black kids picked up a chair and threw it at the cop and bopped him in the head. And
so many examples of cops, teachers, faculty being hurt really, really badly during these episodes of black violence. And, I don't know. Nobody wants to connect the dots. They just want to keep blaming white people for suspending black students.
But, it's got to be denial. Because, I mean, well, I don't know. I hear stories about a white family that went to a fair or maybe some kind of a carnival, and they get caught up in this black riot, and they are stunned. They are shocked. I can't believe these people are doing this. And my reaction is, where have you been?
When you say a white family at a carnival getting caught up in a black riot, I have to ask you, well, you just narrowed it down to one of 75 times I've documented that exact thing.
Water parks.
It's like, what's that?
Water parks,
water parks, carnivals, the public.
There was one at a zoo.
What about the Mall of America, the zoos?
No,
every time you have a free day at the zoo in Washington or Kansas City, that's a thing. That's a black thing. There's lots of free people going in there, and they're causing lots of violence. This is easy. This stuff's easy to find.
Yeah, I got to correct you. I think it's the Mall of Somalia. They changed the name. Something happened there. Okay, so this guy says you can riot if you're white. I'm back to the Philadelphia thing. And your team wins, but if you're black and being killed, you can't speak out, which is probably true. If you're dead, you can't speak. I got it. Declared Hawk Newsom, president of Black Lives Matter, New York. The thing that I notice about Black Lives Matter, you might want to comment on this, is they seem to be very selective about which black lives they're concerned about. So, there were more black people killed by black people last year than there were black people killed by lynching over.
Okay,
84.
new story. New story. This is in the news today. Did you hear about the black in New Orleans? Did you hear any story, Black Lives Matter story out of New Orleans?
Yeah, was it the guy who was killed?
Yeah.
The Black Lives. Yeah, I saw it. I didn't read it, but I saw it.
Okay, so this guy made his bones in the Black Lives Matter movement in Charlotte, North Carolina, by jumping over a fence and attacking somebody carrying a Confederate flag. Okay, he's now he's a major hero for doing that. Goes down to New Orleans, and 2 nights ago he was killed. And so, already the New Orleans paper ran a big editorial today going, hey, don't let his, murder be an excuse for contradicting anything Black Lives Matter says. Well, of course it is. And of course that when a black person walks out of their house, the chances they will be assaulted or killed by a cop are about 1 molecule big. The chances they will be assaulted or killed by another black person are thousands of times more than that.
But they don't care. If a black person is killed by another black person, they ignore it. But if that same black person was killed by a white cop in self-defense, like in Ferguson, then that black life matters. Now, that black life matters. Sometime when you have time, Colin, go to thereligionofpeace.com and take a look at the terrorist attacks that have been committed the last 24 hours. And what you will see is over and over and over again, these terrorist attacks are almost exclusively attack, quote, people of color. A lot of them in Nigeria, a lot of them in black African countries. Black people being killed and maimed by Islam, but those black lives don't matter because they're not being killed by white cops or whatever. Black Lives Matter, in my opinion, is just totally, absolutely, positively bogus. I don't even know why they exist. They don't care about black lives.
Well, I'll tell you why they exist. They started off as nothing, but they exist now because they got a ton of grant money from the Ford Foundation and other people. I mean, that's how they exist now. They're just living on, really, really generous donations from white liberal foundations.
Yeah, I read a story, it may be fake news, but I read a story that one of the founders has become a millionaire by keeping the money for herself. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, one of the founders has a book out now. She's doing the book circuit, and the book circuit says on her book, she's complaining that people don't pay enough attention to Black Lives Matter. I'm not making this up. I mean, this is the person and the group that's been the object of attention from every major media source in the world many times over. She writes a book saying, oh, people don't pay enough attention to us. There's some psycho. See, here's the thing. I don't blame a psycho for acting psychotic. That's what they do. But the major media, like the papers and the CNN, the MSNBCs, if they're losing their audiences, the New York Times, I mean, that's why they're losing. People just don't trust them to deliver the truth anymore. The Los Angeles Times, that thing's going off the cliff right now as we speak. And the same with the Philadelphia Inquirer. And every time they get a new owner, everybody put all the geniuses in a room and they go, what should we do now? And they all say the same thing. Well, let's do the same thing we were doing for the last 20 years, except 10 times more. No change, no broadening of the paper. They narrow it down. It's just astonishing, Ken, that people are making these business decisions with disastrous business consequences over and over.
And they're trying to censor the internet. A few years ago, I did this thing. I mean, I say a few, maybe 2-3 years ago. And every day I would go to Google and I would do the search term brawl, B-R-A-W-L. And without exception, well, with a few exceptions, almost every day you would find a new story about black people brawling. And then just abruptly, I think it was 2016, spring 2016, all the stories just disappeared.
Okay, if you want the gates to open and you want to get flooded with stories about large scale episodes of black mob violence,
Okay.
use the term large fight.
Okay. But
That
I know.
that's where you're going to see tons of large bars, basketball games, football games, streets, whatever. Tons of them every day.
Okay, what is it again? I'm going to do it right now.
Large fight.
Large fight, not
Now,
brawl, but large fight.
so I use it on my Google News alerts. So, when I get something, I'll probably get 50 hits a day. Out of those 50 hits, there'll be, you have to sift through it. Like, you'll get 3, 4, 5 stories of just like today. I just posted a video today. I posted a video of like 5 large fights at basketball games. That's a black thing. As soon as I posted it, I got 3 more emails going, "Hey, Colin, did you see this one?" I mean, I could have posted 3 more episodes. This is in the last couple of days. 3 more episodes of large-scale black mob violence at basketball games. People
but
getting
only
shot.
white people do it after sports events, right?
Well, I'm still
That's
waiting
what they
to see
tell
the
us.
videos of that, and I guess white people are, not taking the videos.
Yeah, you remember the riots in Britain a few years ago?
Yeah.
All people of color, mostly black, but the media would not tell us that. Okay, I
You know,
Googled. Go ahead.
Ken, I remember during that riot thing, and I didn't know anything more about it than anybody else, but I just turned on the TV for 5 minutes, and I saw this Arab shopkeeper saying, "If those black bastards come down our street, we will kill them." I was like, "Wow, I didn't know that was happening over there."
Yeah, by the way, before I do this other thing, there was a black guy who got beaten with a baseball bat because he was making whoopee with some guy's sister, and this guy went after him, and he called him these horrible racist terms. And the media, I don't know if you saw that story or not, but the media used that as an example that racism is a serious problem in the United States. But it turns out the guy with the baseball bat wasn't white. I think he was Polynesian or something like that. Okay, I Googled large fight. Here's what I came up with. Number 1, large fight at high school.
Boom.
Number 2, video shows large fight outside Lawrence North High School. That's in Indianapolis.
Boom.
MPS investigates large fight at Riverside High School, Milwaukee.
I did that. I did that one. Here's the most, just on that one, for example, the most surprising thing about that large episode of black mob violence, that's where adults got hurt, by the way. The most surprising thing to me about that fight at Riverside in Milwaukee is that fight did not happen at the worst place for black mob violence in a high school in Milwaukee. Do you know the name of that high school?
No idea.
The Barack Obama High School.
Yeah, have you ever seen that Barack Obama gas station? I wonder if it's ever been hit. I don't know if you saw that or not.
No, they have, every time. I mean, it's like there's like probably a dozen of these Barack Obama high schools. They're all the same. They're all in black neighborhoods, and they're all episodes of unbelievable crime, violence, mayhem, chaos, disaster, and nobody's learning anything.
Indianapolis, they have a Crispus Attucks High School. Crispus Attucks was a black colonist, the first colonist killed during the Revolutionary War. So they named a school after him, which I'm perfectly okay with because, he was an American hero. Okay, I got a problem, and a lot of people get mad at me for saying this, but I got a problem naming a school after Martin Luther King. I don't like the guy. I really have a problem naming a school after Barack Obama. I really do. There's a bridge in Savannah, Georgia that was named after, what was the guy's name? Talmadge, I think, who was a governor in Georgia 1930s. The Girl Scouts were protesting because he was a segregationist. They want the bridge named after the leader of the Girl Scouts, the founder of the Girl Scouts. Can't remember her name, Dow, I think it was. What they don't seem to know was she was a segregationist. I mean, look at pictures of the Girl Scouts back then. This is totally off topic, but, the Girl Scouts were all white. Okay, I want to...
So you're looking at that large fight list. I mean, you just go down. I mean, the large fight term will show up on other topics, but you don't see large fights in white schools. You just don't.
4 arrested at large fight in Frederick. 9 people hurt, 2 arrested near Turkish embassy. I don't know what that is.
When I oftentimes, I don't even go into my large fight email from Google because I know, what's that?
3 stabbed. I just saw another one.
If I do that, it's like I'll be here all day. I mean, I can't spend all day I'd be there all day, every day. So I only go in there like once a week. And right now, my large fight thing has been going backed up for like 3 weeks.
So
Got like
somebody
50
could
of these things.
somebody could do a story on large fights. I mean, do a website just on large fights. Which are
You know,
black schools.
I wish somebody would.
Yeah, well, just Google it. You got it. Bam.
You got it. Be the easiest thing in the world.
All right, I wanted to bring the story up, get your reaction from this. I'm going to read a couple lines here. Fatal high school stabbing leaves Westchester enclave shaken to its core.
Oh yeah, okay. I know
one?
exactly what this story is. Go ahead.
16-year-old Valerie Schwab was just trying to get back her house keys. Okay, I'll turn it over to you. What's the story about?
Okay, a white girl goes to Dunkin' Donuts. A bunch of black people come up, hassle her, torture her, fight her. All of a sudden, they pull a knife out and stab her and kill her. Just a white kid goes. This is Westchester in New York. That used to be the liberal, wealthy white enclave. All of a sudden, there's a bunch of black people there. If you read down that story, you're going to see 2 other stories, and they kind of, it's like offhand, right? And they go, oh yeah, by the way, we've had 2 other episodes of teen violence, and in and around here since then.
Well, you don't call them teens, you call them fellas.
Well, they're right. That's how the paper calls them, teens. So I looked into it. You see, I look into every one before saying anything, right? It's like, okay, one of these days I'm going to find a bunch of white kids doing this, but I haven't found it yet. So a bunch of black people, I mean, they keep getting violent even after that girl died. I mean, I don't know what is there to say about a bunch of black people attacking a girl and killing her.
Well, they say nothing about race, but if the races were reversed, what do you think would happen?
We don't have to be hypothetical. We already know what would happen, and we know it would be a national story. And
be a firestorm, be a media firestorm. They would not shut up about it for months. Trayvon Martin.
The big comeback, yeah, exactly. The big comeback is, well, Colin, you don't have any proof that was racially motivated. People use these words as if they have meaning when they do not. So, we're still 500 years after the fact. We're still trying to figure out why the Prince of Denmark, Hamlet, did not kill his stepfather for killing his father. We're having a discussion about motivation. That's a diversion. And so what I like to do is say, no, we don't talk about motivation, since Ken and I are not mind readers, but what we do talk about are patterns. And so here's the pattern of black on white violence, wildly out of proportion. You want to tell me that's a coincidence? Go ahead, tell me that it's a coincidence. Because it's not. It's a pattern.
But that's what they say. Just
no, but I'm telling you how to arm yourself against this ridiculous. See, it's kind of built into the language, right? Well, Colin, you don't have racially motivated. Well, that's a stupid word anyway. So let's just talk about the patterns, and that's the proof. I mean, a lot of people watch you and me, Ken, so they can kind of like figure out a way to talk about this in a way that's persuasive in their house and in their school. And so we got to really school people on how not to fall into these linguistic traps.
Well, once again, like I said earlier, the best way to school people is to send them to the school, to the black majority school, and experience it.
So absent that, that's why I do videos, because the videos are the most powerful thing that we have.
But you get censored.
Yeah, I don't care. I'll keep doing them. Here's the thing. On some level, even though people will deny this is happening, they don't go into the hood to get some barbecue. They don't go with black churches. They don't go to black funeral homes. They don't go to black barbers. So on some level, there's a disconnect,
they
right?
Know.
They know.
Yeah.
And so, they're like, they know.
There are.
By the way, that's a definition of neuroses, by the way.
Neurosis is what?
Kind of like thinking one thing, but trying to pretend you think something else. I mean, that's a mental illness.
Yeah. There are heat maps that you can find on the internet that illustrate racial segregation. I was looking at one yesterday, and they have, whoever made this map is back 2010, I think. Every white person was represented by a green dot, and every black person was represented by a blue dot. And they had maps of Atlanta, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, whatever. We are a segregated society. White people will not go. These white privileged liberals live, Colin, in isolated, insulated enclaves, some of them gated communities. they won't go anywhere near a black community to live or even to drive through it. Now, you've probably seen these apps you get for your iPhone, whatever, and they steer you around violent neighborhoods. Coincidentally, they also happen to be black neighborhoods.
There was a story, somebody sent me a story the other day. The 10 most dangerous cities in America, they're all black cities. And, but to illustrate the story, they had a picture of a white guy in handcuffs. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, or if there's a gun crime, they have a picture with a gun and a white hand holding the gun. That's that's the meaty bass. I got to ask you this question: What we can see the problem. What is the solution? How do we fix it? I think I know what your answer is going to be. But
well, go ahead, tell me.
I think your answer is keep doing what you're doing, and that is telling the truth.
I don't see any alternative to that.
But it seems to be working though, because if it didn't work, they wouldn't be kicking you off YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I'm not,
be
I mean, I hear people once in a while, they say, well, Colin, the black people have their own thing. We ought to have our own white thing. I'm not down with any of that. I'm not down with any supremacy or, white nationalism or anything like that. I'm just kind of have a libertarian small L viewpoint. It's like, I just don't want people messing with me, and I won't mess with you. If you put your hand out, I will accept it in friendship. But if you come at me, I will come back at you 10 times worse. And the fact, so you talk about people living in segregated places. I live in a little town called Wilmington, Delaware, where 65% black. And so this crossover between black and white is a very, very dangerous and volatile place. We're seeing that with the gentrified neighborhoods, right? White people move into black neighborhoods, they become targets right away.
Why do they do that? Are they crazy? Or are they just ignorant?
They're blind, and they're sometimes they're blind. That's why.
They believe the media. Now I got to tell you, when I turn on television, and by the way, I don't watch television. What I actually do is I walk through the living room while my wife's watching television.
There's some good shows on, Ken.
Say what?
There are some good shows out there.
Occasionally I watch Fox News, but Last Man Standing, I never watched it, but I heard that was a good show. But what I do, Colin, is I watch 1940s movies. But anyhow, when I walk by the TV and see what's on, everybody's getting along fine. Is that a delusion? Are they trying to convince us that reality is not reality? Are people buying it? Seems to me that they are. Okay, here's a question for you. Let's say that Colin Flaherty drives up to a McDonald's. Do you eat at McDonald's, by the way?
I hate to say, I eat at McDonald's every couple months, including last night at 11:30. So I'm busted.
Yeah. By the way, I've been on a fast. Today's my 6th day of fasting.
Wow! Congratulations.
Yeah, longest I've ever gone. Totally off topic. Okay.
Did you? I have to ask you this question since I went through something similar. How much weight have you lost in the 6 days?
No idea. I went to the hospital for a blood check. I just completed a 3-day fast last week. They said I lost 6 pounds, which I think is a little bit high. Typically, it's 1 pound. We're totally off topic, people, but since July, I've lost about 45 pounds.
Nice. I lost 50 pounds, and I did it, I did it the commercial way. I just went to Jenny Craig, bought the food, ate it, lost 50 pounds in about 6 months.
Like the commercial says, I'm too cheap to do that.
It worked. Okay. Whatever, whatever works. That's all.
Yeah, I just do what works. Anyhow, my question was this. You drive up to McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts, whatever, and you see it's occupied by a lot of black people. What do? Do you go on in?
I'm situationally aware 24/7, and I'm situationally able to protect myself all the time. Short answer is, it's called routine activity theory. A white person in a black neighborhood could expect to be the victim of routine racial violence. So no, I don't subject myself to unnecessary risk at the hands of black hostility, no matter where it is.
So the answer is you drive away. Is that right?
Depends. I mean, I don't, I've never had that experience, but I mean, sometimes, like say if I was walking up to McDonald's and I saw a bunch of fellas and I turned around, now that would make me a target by displaying the weakness. I mean, it's like jungle terms out there. So, I will tell you though, like, I don't want to be any more explicit than this, except that I am extremely well protected 24/7.
We got it. Okay. Have you ever taken karate or taekwondo or anything?
No.
Okay, I did, and it was humiliating because the little 5-year-old girls beat me up. All right, but a few years ago, I was with a friend in Louisville, and we went into McDonald's, thought nothing of it, and basically everybody in there was black. All eyes were on us. It was as if they were staring at us and saying, "You are in the wrong place." Does that sound typical to you?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
That's
Listen,
just routine.
I mean, I mean, as soon as you say that, I think 10 videos roll in my head right now where a white person's in a black neighborhood and they're being beat on the video and they're saying exactly what you just said. You're in the wrong hood. Boom, bang, bang. People get hurt real badly. I'm just telling you, there's an enormous amount of black on white hostility. And if you don't recognize that on one level, you'll recognize it on another level if you really, really believe that is not the case.
Well, do you think, we may disagree on this, but do you think there was ever a time in American history where that was not the case?
You know, I don't know. I'm not a historian. I'm not a geneticist. I'm not a theologian, a sociologist, a psychologist. I don't know. But if you look, but I see the same stuff everybody else sees. I see newspapers from Washington and Detroit from the 40s and the 20s talking about large scale episodes of black violence. I mean, you see it in Gone with the Wind. And so I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, my opinion is it's always been a problem. A lot of people are unaware of this, but Abraham Lincoln, I'm trying to pull up a web page, so I'm trying to think and do something.
I know, it's funny. I was talking about this exact story this week. Somebody sent it to me and I said, "Oh, thanks for sending me this. I always wanted to read this story." You're talking about the time he was involved in an episode of large scale black mob violence.
Yeah, when he was 19 years old, he and a buddy were attacked by, I think, 7 black guys. Is that the story you're thinking
Yeah.
of? Yeah. That was 1830. Nearly 200 years ago. The point being, it's always been there. It has always been a part of American culture, black on white violence. Now, we may disagree on this, and this may be outside your realm of things that you want to talk about, but I personally believe that the reason we had Jim Crow laws was to protect white people from black violence. I don't think they were racist. I think they were anti-racist. Now, that's not to say I agree with them or that the government should impose that type of legislation, but I think the reason, Colin, we had Jim Crow laws, we had segregated schools, was so that you wouldn't get attacked. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on that or not, but
Well, here's the thing. What we know, so I don't know about, I don't know how that whole dynamic worked. But the thing today is, it's like there's so much institutional. Kids go to high school, they go to college, they take black studies in college, they learn that white people suck, black people are relentless victims. And there's a lot of anger out there, and there's a lot of there's a lot of affirmative action and special treatment that creates white backlash, white resentment. So as long as there's all this stuff going on, that I don't know how it ends. That's the point. I don't know how it ends.
yeah, I don't think that causes it, but I think it certainly exasperates it. I think it just pours fuel on the fire. Okay, here's the story. The mother says a video of her 15-year-old son happens to be white, but the media doesn't tell us that, being beaten up in a Wellington McDonald's bathroom. Did you see the story?
Yeah, that happened twice in the same 1 month in the same bathroom. So it's like, I don't even know which one you're looking at now because it was same story. Somebody busts open the door, goes in, wails on a white kid. Everybody's laughing. There's a camera. It's all planned. It's staged. And it's like, this has nothing to do with anything. So we're told nothing.
If you look at the video, the kid was not using the toilet. He was sitting on it. So my thought was he went in there to get away from these black kids to protect himself. Don't know that, but that's...
You happen to be 100% correct, sir.
By the way, we're down to about 2 minutes, but the minute-long video shows a teenager kick open the stall door and proceed to punch the victim, who crouches on top of the toilet, and the attacker's yelling profanities. Colin, as you well know, this is... it's epidemic. It happens all the time. And this is the one they video recorded and uploaded. How many other attacks, how many thousands of these black on white attacks occur that we don't know about?
Okay, so do a back of the envelope calculation. Figure out the number of kids, white kids in your school who were attacked by black people when you were there. Start multiplying that on a nationwide level. Then multiply it by the number of years. You know what? We get up to 1 million people in a real hurry. I did a story that gets taken off YouTube, but not it's still on minds.com, about Henry Rollins, the punk rocker. National Geographic sent him back to his neighborhood, to his school, where he described every day being surrounded by black kids, harassed, taunted, threatened, beaten until he pissed his pants. Howard Stern tells the same story.
Howard Stern, I've never heard him say that.
Good Lord, this is, if you look at Howard Stern High School, you'll see Howard Stern talking 10 times about what it was like going to school in Long Island, why his mother made him go to a black school, and how it was hell for him for 1 year. To him now, it's kind of funny, but he kind of blamed his mom for making him go there. His mom said, Howard, you are going to be our ambassador to black people to show them we're not all bad.
Well, tell Mom to go to school with you.
Howard had a very, very difficult time in high school.
But he was red-pilled. That's the key. The website is minds.com/Colin Flaherty, Flaherety. Excuse me. Colin, I appreciate it so much. We're out of time.
Ken, it's always great to talk to you. Thanks a whole lot.
Is there any other way folks can reach you? Facebook, just type in Colin Flaherty.
I'm easy. I'm easy to find. Just go Colin Flaherty, Facebook, Twitter. You know, I'm easy to find, believe me.
Okay, Doc, thanks so much, and let's do it again. Keep in touch.